everybody. I'm Joey Evans.
I'm Camilla Cleghorn.
I'm Z Garcia.
And today we are reviewing a board game based on a video game.
They do
Yes.
that?
Oh,
It's
they
brand-
did recently.
Oh, here we go.
Ah!
Oh, Dead by Daylight.
The board game.
All together now.
It's also the collector's edition.
Yes.
Just FYI.
That's why it's such a good box size.
It's huge, but we hold it together here. All right, either one of you ever play this video game?
Yes. Did I shock you? I played it because when this board game came out, I was
Really?
so excited.
How has this never come up, by the way?
I don't know, but you never asked. Have you ever asked me?
I
Have
didn't
either of you
think I
played
would
the
have
board
to ask you.
game and waited for an answer? No, that's why I jumped in there.
Okay, because you don't like horror and you don't like video
Well, I
games.
do like horror.
Well, not like scary horror.
That's the only kind of horror there is. That's what it means. I don't like horror, so no.
I don't like horror movies because they scare me.
Okay.
But in video games, it's
You can see my confusion, right?
But no,
Okay.
I was so excited. Like, I just really like this theme and the spooky nature of it. And I was really excited because I'd never heard of it until the board game. And so when it was on Kickstarter, I went and played the game, the actual video game. And it made me sick, as most video games do. I got
Yeah.
really dizzy. But I
Oh.
stuck it out for like 45 minutes or so. And I died a lot.
Wow. Okay.
So yes, I played.
Surprising. Plot
There
twist.
you go. Okay.
So we're going to first of all take a look at how this is played and come back and see what we thought about it.
All right.
Okay, everybody, we are now set up for the Dead by Daylight board game. Now, there is going to be a glare on this, and we have turned down as many lights as we can in the studio here, but really we're going to address this in the review. There is a glare that's going to be present on here. Now, again, this is just a quick rules overview. This is not going to be a full rules teach. So this is just kind of going to give you the feel of the game. So first off, how do you win? Well, the way the survivors win, it's going to be an all versus one. You've got all the survivors here. You've got 4 survivors, and you've got 1 killer. And the way the survivors win is they're going to get all 4 generators working and then find the exit, get successes, and then they're going to get out and win. How does the killer win? Well, the killer wins to go ahead and get this to fill out all these lines right here on the hooks. So now, how to play. How to get these generators working and how to get towards the end. Pretty much this is a cat and mouse game. You're going to have 4 survivors, and all the survivors are going to have a deck of cards. And these cards are going to have different icons. You're going to have sprint, sneak, vault, and crouch. You'll notice those icons also here on the board. So when you start off, you're going to go to a different room, and that's decided by a die roll. So these are all the survivors here, and then you've got the killer over here. So what's going to happen is they're going to have all their cards. Oh, and the killer does have one other one. The killer also has, I left it behind, a wait card. Okay? So the killer has 1 extra card. So what's going to happen is in player order, starting with the person with the player marker here, say it's this guy, they're going to go ahead and place 1. They can talk openly, and they're going to place 1 card down. All right? And then you're going to go around, and you are going to flip that card. Say it is a crouch. Okay? So if it's a crouch, then you're going to be able to move that place. So say the crouch was this guy's here. He's going to then move that direction. You're going to see can you see there? There you go. So you're going to move this area and go here. Then you get to flip any one of these tokens, and then you get to interact. So say we're going to flip because we're looking for the generator, so those are going to be yellow. So we're going to flip, boom. That is an exit right here, okay? So now we know where one of the exits is, okay? And there's nothing here to interact with, so he's not going to interact with anything. He's just going to be there. So also, let me go into real quick. These right here, these are blocked. So the people can't go through there. The survivors can't, but the killer can. But once a killer goes through there, it's removed, and now it's free game for anyone to go through there. One other thing I will point out is there are blood tokens given to everybody. You start with 2 here, 2, 2, 2. And you can get more throughout the game. And those are going to allow you to do different abilities. You're going to notice on everyone's player boards here, they're going to have different abilities. Like, for instance, right here, Iron Will, he can use one of these to turn a failure into a success. Okay, so that is his ability. But everybody here has different abilities. They're going to help them be more asymmetric in there. And the killer also starts with 4 blood tokens right over here and has different abilities through here. Right now we are battling the spirit. So, all right, back to the game. So pretty much that is it. You're going to move, you're going to flip, and you're going to interact. So everyone's going to flip over their cards one at a time, and they're going to show their card. This guy might have did yellow, so he's going to go here. And that's another exit, okay? So then this guy right here is going to go, whoop, whoop, say they do green. And look, that's a generator. And the cool thing about this is the generators in the collector's edition are actually these generators, okay? So this generator is going to replace this token in the collector's edition. All right, and now to interact with this generator, he's going to roll one of these die. Now, these die have different faces on there. Here are the die. The die are going to have 1 through 5, and then also this is a failure. Now, the 5 right here is a great success. So, you're going to roll it, and if it's a success, which it is, you're going to take one of these pins right here and put it into the generator. So now you have one success. Now, say somebody else comes along and rolls this, and they roll a great success that is 2. So they're going to take 2 of these, put them in there, whoop, and whoop. And now all of a sudden that generator is ready. You're going to take it, and you're going to put it there, and now you only have 3 more generators to get up and going. Okay, so that is the way you're going to win the game. And then once you do that, you're going to go here, interact with this exit, and you have to get 3 successes on that to open the exit, and then you win. So now let's go to the killer. The killer, once everybody does their move and their interact, the killer is going to flip over his cards. The killer will be able to put 2 cards out there, and they're in the order that he's going to go. So right here, say we're going to go ahead. We've got a sprint. Well, this will be the first one here. We've got a vault, so the vault, we'll say we're going to move up here, and again, they can flip and interact. The killer is probably going to flip over the red tokens right here, because that's more stuff he needs. Now, this is a hex. All right, this right here, this actually is where the killer can interact with, and he can get different, more blood tokens. Now, before we go into that, let me show you a bit what the icons do. You are on the back of all of these player boards are actually player aids, which is actually really nice. So let's go through these real quick. First off, the killer interactions. First, the killer interaction is an occupied locker. You can then go through and try to get the person out of the locker because people can hide in the locker. We'll go through that with the survivors. The generator, like I mentioned, the generator over here, you could actually sabotage that generator if it's not fully done. So say there's only 2 pegs in it, you can remove 2 and put it out. And the crow, you can remove that. And then you also gain a blood token. The crow is going to help them. And the hex totem is going to be, you just interact with that and you get 2 more blood tokens. So then the survivor here, some of the survivors, and some, I won't go through all of these, but they're things like the hook. You can sabotage the hook so people can't get hung on there later. You can remove a hex totem. You have the generator and the exit gate, locker, and pallets you can put on the path to block the killer or make it harder for him to go through. So, okay, so now let's go back to the killer here. He went here, he'll interact with this hex, and to do that, he then will get 2 more blood tokens right here. Place them on there, and now let's go ahead and move right up. Let's go move up here. All right, and that's a hex. You know what? I don't want to do a hex. Let's say I moved over here and flip, and that is a hook. And in this one, they've got, these nice hooks here. So I'm going to replace this, and the hook goes. And again, my killer here gets to interact. And my interacting is going to be with this guy right here, this survivor, to wound them. And once they are wounded, you put this on the bottom, and this denotes that this character is now wounded. So later in the game, now right now you can't throw them on a hook. That has to happen, it can't happen the same round that it's wounded and hooked. So say later that you happen to be, it's later in the game, you moved in here. Now you can then just take this guy and throw him on a hook. And first of all, look at this. Here we go. Look at this. Right here. And you put it right on the hook. Let's do this. There we go. So this guy right here is going to go on the hook. Just trust me. This guy does not want to be hooked. There we go. So he's going to hang right here on the hook. Now, the one thing is you can't be wounded and hooked the same turn. So there he is hanging right there. Now, that is if the hook is in the same area. If not, so say the hook is down here. So they're wounded, I'm in the same area. I want to take this wounded survivor over here and put him on the hook. So what will I do? I have to move, how many spaces is this? 1, 2. So they have to roll at least 2 die, the survivor does. And anything, if they get a great success, they can escape. Anything else, they're going to get hooked. So there it is. I can then take her 1, 2, put her on the hook. Now if she rolls one of these, I will get a blood token. All right? But a great success that would actually allow them to leave. So that is pretty much it. And oh, one other thing, this is how they win. Once you're put on this hook, like this, you'll notice on the player board, you've got these. So say it was, I'm not sure which mini this is, say it was David here that was hooked. Take this, and you place it on the board. All right? So that is going to progress that track. And every time you start a round, if you've got somebody hooked, they're going to take another one of these and start to fill that board and move it up. So you're going to want to remove those people from those hooks. Number one, they can't do anything. They're just hanging there. So they're not going to assist you at all. But it is every time they're on there during a round, they're going to advance that track. And one thing I do like about this is everybody has a hook. So if I go back, say he gets free, someone else frees him, moves out. Then these other guys right here, if I go and hook him again, I don't get that initial token. So I want to kind of spread the love, kind of chase somebody else and get them out. And also, once someone's wounded like this, if another character is in the same area as them, their interaction could be to heal that person, which is very essential because, again, they can only be hooked if they are wounded. So again, and the only other thing that you can do is there are special abilities here. I'm not going to go into all of them. There are a lot, like I mentioned, and those are how you use blood tokens. Different ways for survivors to get blood tokens. Different ways for killers to get blood tokens. But that is it. It's a pretty simple game. It's a cat and mouse. You just move. You're going to move, flip a token, and interact. And that is it. And you're going to try to get those generators going and get those exits open and get out before they hook everybody. So let's send it back to the studio and see what we thought about it. Okay, so that was it. That was how to play it, and pretty simple mechanically.
It is. I think almost to the point when you're reading the rule book, you're like, wait, is that it? Like, hold on. Like, I feel like I read it 2 or 3 times just to make sure it was that simple and actually the mechanisms of it.
I think it's very, like, the bones, the structure is very simple. But then there's a lot of little layers painted on top of that and painted on top of that, and eventually it's, it's a big old bunch of stuff you got to deal with. But they're not in the structure of the game.
Right.
It's, on your turn you play a little card and you move. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's kind of it, yeah. And then you flip a token, and there are 8 of them, and they each do something different, and it's different for you or the killer, and you have a character, and they have 3 abilities, or maybe you drafted some, and they have 3 different abilities. So
right.
I don't know if I would call this simple, but it is simpler than you'd think when you look at this monstrosity.
Right. I think the mechanisms are very simple, but when you actually get into the play, there's a lot of what I guess you were saying, those little layers of like, okay, you flip a token. Oh, right, but they're color coded. Oh, right, and each color can have 2 different options. Hold on. So it's more in the little, like, the minutia of the turn.
Yes.
You're making one choice. You flip a token. Okay, but which one? Pick one. Well, what does each of them do? What are my odds in it? Like, there's a lot of different micro decisions that you have to make.
It's not as icon heavy as some games. You can kind of figure it out, but there are times when you kind of are just, you've got nothing to interact with.
Yes.
Due to movement and things like that. Now, okay, before we get to that, production value. There's a lot of big pluses and minuses in my view of this game. What do you guys think about production of it?
I think the production is very confusing. It's very, very polarized. If you went with this collector's edition, the minis and that kind of stuff are really awesome, and they put some time into it, and the hooks where they have the different sceneries on them. You have the wooden textures, and you have the vines crawling up them, and the ropes, and they look awesome, and they hook together. It's just, it's really awesome. But then the board is so shiny. I think you had said it looks like someone used Microsoft Paint and just hit
it's
print
rough.
at Kinko's and forgot to choose matte option.
Yes.
Like forgot that you play board games in the light. And so it was just like, I don't want to say it's unusable because I feel like that's being really dramatic, but it's
Very
really
dramatic.
cumbersome to use it. The board is so shiny that you're doing this the whole time to catch the light right to make sure you're seeing the paths. And the paths are a little bit difficult to follow. I know I'm kind of getting more into graphic design at this point, but I do feel like that's a pretty big production issue.
We should talk about graphic design.
And the fact that
Yes.
the tokens are blue some places and purple other places.
That's huge, by the way.
Your colors aren't even on. So it's just like production is all over the map for me on this. It's like I love it and I hate it. Different parts. It just
I don't think it's all over the map. I think the miniatures of the collectible the collector's edition miniatures, okay, the generators and the hooks, I think are good.
Right.
I think everything else is from okay to very subpar. That's generally a negative. Like, this is not like, some things are fantastic, about as many as are not good. No. There's like 2 good things. The rest looks like trash. I'm sorry, the graphic design in this game is horrible.
But the minis you like, the minis for the killers and the survivors or whatever.
They're okay.
They're
I mean,
fine.
they're okay. The generators and the hooks are great.
Those
Yeah.
are great.
Yeah. But the graphic design on the board is horrible.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, there's nothing there. I mean, it's so basic. There's no pizzazz. This is a game that lives or dies on its style.
yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what it's about. The style, the spooky thing, it's substance. That's what it is. The substance isn't necessarily what you're hooking people with, no pun intended. It's that style. There's no style on this board.
The big thing is there's a disconnect because I didn't hate as far as the player boards as much as like you did. I don't think you were crazy about that.
I don't like them at all.
I don't mind the player boards. Now I think there's a disconnect in just how bad the board is.
And-
that's it's brutal.
Right, and I think I'm more on your side. I actually don't mind the player boards. I like that you have the little round structure right there. I think
Right.
your 3 abilities on the bottom, I think they are set up very user-friendly. And so I actually like the player boards. I think that they are well done. But you use the word disconnect, that is so true from the board. Did 2 different people work on this? Did anybody work on the board? I don't know. Like, it looks like it was first draft and never revisited.
It almost looked like they had a deadline of Friday, and it's like they worked on everything else until Wednesday. They're like, oh no, we have 2 days, just throw together a board.
Right.
That is brutal. And now I do like the player aids are on the back of those big player boards, so we can flip it over so it has a player aid. I do like that. But all right, so now getting into the gameplay itself. What did you guys feel about the way the game plays and strategically and all that stuff?
I like the flow of the game. I really do. I think it's neat to have your character. You look at what you're doing. You know your objective. If you're the good guy, find the generators, pump them up. Put your 1 card out, right? And then you bad guy programs there too. Like, I like how simple it is. It's a
Right.
good flow. Flip it, move, flip a token, interact with something there, next player. It's almost managed to make a big game like this have quick, snappy turns, which is pretty nice. And so I like that feeling. I don't think the game scales very well.
At all.
Right.
That's a big
No.
drawback there. This is a game that lists what, 2 to 5, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah,
It's a 5-player game.
Period.
it is.
Everybody needs to
Yes.
run one thing, okay? If you're running multiple things, you're not going to be utilizing your abilities. You're not going to be able to do the things you want to do well. You're not going to be able to role play, for one thing, as
Right.
one character, which again, it's not substance, it's about those things. You want that immersion, that style. I want to be one person. I'm so-and-so, the escape artist. I can do this. If I'm with you, oh gosh, you're bleeding, I can help you. I want to role play. I
Right.
need one character to do that, you know?
As well as I think even just using those abilities is so much easier if you're just running one character, because I know I would get my 2 characters' abilities confused. Oh, this one can do this, this, this. Oh, because they do that, they can do that. Perfect. Oh, wait, no, that's not that one. That's the other character. I don't know. I just found it very not user-friendly to run the two characters. Yes, they're very simple in what they do, but because the theme is so strong in this, and you're supposed to be getting into it, and you're talking about role-playing, you end up at the variants for other player counts other than 5, you end up just dropping that and just looking at bare bones. And I think this game is sold in the theme, and to take that out, it doesn't break it, but it just makes it significantly less fun. So I don't like the variants. I really don't like the 2-player variant at all. And then the 3-player variant, it's just, you end up just playing a mechanism game when that's not what this is supposed to be.
Right.
And the card limitation is hard with the 3-player variant as well, which I think it doesn't make a lot of sense. I like the whole fact that it all has to be open communication between the survivors.
That's cool.
So as the killer,
really cool.
you're sitting there listening, and I will say right now, these two are liars. Because when I hear them talk
That's
to each
also
other,
true.
and they're like, hey, we're going over here. So guess what? As a killer, I go to that room, and where is everyone?
That only happened twice.
A little bit
I
messed
really
up.
like that. I think, again, I think when the game is at the
like-
max player count, that's where the game is at its most fun. You got a killer, you got 4 survivors, they're talking, the killer is there waiting. everybody has one thing they
Acting
do.
like he's not. I'm like, yeah. So he's like, we're going to go through here. I'll meet you here. I'm like, okay.
I'm not there.
And we're like, bye.
Completely other side of the board.
Yeah. I do like that. I think that is where the game is going to shine. If it's going to shine at all, it's going to shine from everybody getting to the theme.
Right.
And everybody being one character and running that character and playing it up. Like, oh no, you caught me. Oh, I'm bleeding. Oh, I'm dragging myself. I'm on a hook. Somebody help me. Where are you going? Nobody came over to my spot, guys. I'm over here on the hook.
We're just like
hanging.
twitching. Just twitching.
You know what I mean? Like, that's where this game, because there are so few mechanisms, really,
Right.
it lives and dies by you getting into what's there, you know, role-playing it up, kind of having a good time with the theme. The more players you take away, the more it's about the mechanics at play.
Yes.
And therefore, the less interesting it is. I think they did a good job removing impediments so that you can play. You can just kind of be at play, have fun. The fewer players you have, the more that you can't do that.
And honestly, I'm okay with those lower player counts being in there as variants, but I think they need to be very clear that it's a variant, because if you do play this regularly at 5 and you get to know these characters and you really have these mechanisms and systems down pat, maybe the variant when it's all fine, you know, hey, we'll do it this one turn, and you can still bring that to life. But I think, again, you shouldn't go into a game learning to play, or even the first couple times you play, playing a variant of it. I don't think that does the game justice.
Right.
And you don't know that going into this because it's 2 to 5 players.
Right.
It's not. Like that's kind of the point I think we're trying to make. Is it's a 5-player game,
Right.
which once you know and you enjoy and you get the theme, and if you can carry that role-playing down because you're so familiar with the game, maybe a variant is okay now and then. But you're not getting the full game.
Again, and this is all assuming you're playing with a full player count, there's a lot of content in the box.
There is.
There's a lot of the killers, the different killers, and that'll be fun to explore different ones, right? There's also a giant, and I mean giant, stack of abilities, or whatever they're called, that you can change a character with. I don't
That's
recommend
big.
it with fewer players, because again, if you can learn the ones you've been playing with, do not, for the love of all that's holy, change the abilities, because then it's like you're back to square zero. But if you're playing one character, absolutely, I'll draft some cards and change up the things I can do. I can customize my character. That's great. There's a lot of, again, that replayability, malleable sort of play sessions in the box, and I do enjoy that.
I do too. There's a lot of, like, as far as you can scale the difficulty too, because a lot of the villains have better abilities, so you can kind of balance that back and forth. And it is at its core a cat and mouse game. You're just going to try to go different ways, and the simplicity of you move, interact. And now it's very swingy, you know.
It's very lucky.
Yeah, it's very lucky, because on good die rolls for the survivors, it could just be virtually over in the round. You know, you're like, yeah, these are all just running the engine though.
But to be fair, that's kind of how the video game is as well, right? Like once the killer gets you and he's taking you to the hook, I mean, I don't know the buttons very well, but there's one that you're pushing frantically trying to wiggle and get away. You know, and sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't. And depending on how close the hook you are, is those stats kind of change. You know, so you can try to get away. So I think, yes, I completely agree, it is swingy. So is the video game.
Yeah, and there's also strategy in there as far as like wounded. You can't be wounded and hooked the same turn, so you want to just wound as many people as possible and then throw on the hooks, which there's something satisfying. I don't know how the non-collector's edition would be where you just, I'm going to put you on this token.
You got this token.
Yeah, but now you're actually hanging them on hooks.
You got to hang them on hooks.
Pretty nice.
It's got a good look. Yeah, those plastic things have a good look to them.
So, okay, all right. So where do you guys come down on this as far as number-wise? What do you think? Final thoughts? Here we go.
Final
Give me some
thoughts.
Final thoughts.
I'm going to come in at a 7 for this. And I think in kind of coming to that rating, I went through a huge spectrum. You know, I went all the way down to like a 4 at my biggest frustration with the graphic design. I was like infuriated. It's like, oh my gosh, this one wraps all the way over to there. Like just, it's not intuitive. And so at that most frustration, I also went all the way up to like an 8.5 because I was like, oh, we had those funny moments, you know, of being on the hook and really getting into your character and just, I really, really enjoyed those moments. And like you said, I think you had some of those really great moments, and the you as the killer in that one play I meant, and then, you know, us as the survivors here trying to get away had those moments. And so I love the experience that it brings. But ultimately, because of those big frustrations, it's one of that I would recommend, but it's going to have a lot of caveats to it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, wow, if you like the video game, try this out. Also know these couple of things. Only play at 5, you know, to start. Really get to know your characters. Have a lot of patience going into it with the board, you know, but play more into that social deduction, you know, get into the theme, and that's what's going to sell it. So I came in at a 7 where I would recommend it with some caveats that I'm going to give people, but ultimately I do look forward to playing this game in those ideal situations where I can get 5 and 5 who are into this theme. So it's a 7 for me.
Okay.
I'm coming in lower, much lower than that. I'm coming in at a 5. I'm a stickler, and this is, again, I know that I am for graphic design. I really am. I think I find myself being very unforgiving of bad graphic design because it's apparent. You can look at this game and go, that's bad graphic design. That's shiny, sure. Maybe you didn't see the board till the final production was in-house, sure. But the way the board looks is uninspired. That's the biggest way I can put it, okay? You are trying to inspire me to pretend I'm running from a killer, or I am a killer hunting stupid teenagers across some forest or whatever. This board ain't doing it. The gameplay comes with too many caveats, like you said, on top of that. There's too much to excuse. Will I never play this? Yeah, I'll play this at 5 with people who are fun to play with and will liven it up and be silly and have a good time with it and not be sticklers for me going, oh, wait, I forgot to use my ability, which is going to happen 12 times across the 5 players, at least, in the game. All that stuff. At that point, yeah, sure, I'll try it. What do I think of this game in every situation I can think of? It's average at best. There's a lot of things here that were misfires, I think. So, nice right down the middle, average 5.
Okay. See, I'm actually coming in with Camilla at 7. And again, I went back and forth. Here's the thing. Here's what's weird. I like the gameplay when it's singing. First of all, and you can put it down, and it's easy setup. You put it out, and most miniature games are not. This is easy setup. The tokens. It's funny how they could release an update pack or just a fix pack, not even an update. This is things that should have been done here, and it'd probably bring up to an 8 or 8.5. First off, you know, get the board right. Second of all, get that token not to be purple, but to be blue. Have it match. There's a disconnect. It's like, I think this is it. And then this box size, we haven't talked about that. It's obnoxious. You can make it half the size, taller, and fit into a Calyx or any shelf.
Right. There's no component that goes the full length of this box. It could be half and half stacked on top, double think.
There's no purpose for that. But all that being said, the biggest, once you actually sit there and start to play the game, it is a fun game. Now, there are some problems in the game with you having to tilt because the light is reflecting on that board and see like what it is. That's annoying. And like Z said, you feel immersed when you're hanging things on hooks, but then you're just on top of this very bland artwork that there's no design. that disconnects you from the game. Everything else is there. I think the gameplay for me is there. It's fun. It's light. It's uber light. This is as close to a beer and pretzels game as a miniature game can get from me. But it's very simple.
Well, and to be fair, it's a miniature game because of the collector's edition.
Right.
Right?
And
Like those.
I don't think I could play this with just the tokens, by the way. That would be a totally different game.
'Cause it's the
So I
theme.
don't think it's strong enough to do that. Or cubes, Chris. So, okay, all right. So anyway, all right, that is Dead by Daylight right here. All right. I might go try the video game now. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm Joy Evans.
I'm Camilla Cleghorn.
I'm Z Garcia.
We'll be dead by daylight.
Oh
No.
my God.
I will survive.
That was awkward.